Hey everybody, this is Andrew and JC, and we are here with yet another episode of Sasquatchers. Uh, Last episode we talked Bigfoot, and this week we're going to talk some more Bigfoot, which is a rarity on Sasquatchers. We're going to introduce our guest tonight after the introduction.
The truth is out there. Never stop looking. Never be sheep. Always disrupt. We are the ungovernable. We are the truth seekers. We are Sasquatchers.
Wow.
And we are here with Brett Eichenberger and Tobe Jonshon, and I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to them and let them introduce themselves to you all.
Hey, I'm Tobe Jonshon, and below me is Brett Eich. No, I'm kidding. I'm Brett Eichenberger, and I'm the director of A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, and A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. And I've been a filmmaker for over 25 years. I've done narrative feature films that can be found if you look hard enough. And this is something that has been a passion of mine since I was a little kid. I was obsessed with Steven Spielberg films, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws. You know it. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm just wanting to, go out with our team, which includes Tobe, Joel Remensnyder, writer and producer, and Michael Ferry, cinematographer, and the rest of us and the rest of the people that sometimes join us on our journeys. We want to go out and we want to find out the truth and uncover some mysteries.
That's super cool. And Tobe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see here. I grew up, not too far from a little place called Pleasant Hill, Oregon, home to Ken Kesey of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Maybe that's where this all started. And then a little hidden, I think it's called Hidden Valley Road in Jasper, Oregon, living down from a free thinker like Ken Kesey. But I think, for me, this idea of Bigfoot began in similar territory as where it began for Brett, which was the love of cinema and seeing Roy Neary from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, played by Richard Dreyfuss, say crazy stuff on film about things that he couldn't let go of, issues of the unexplained, in this case, UFOs. And I always thought it was all super similar. Bigfoot, UFOs, all of it. It is ESP. And I really didn't think there were two different camps at first of people that thought this was a flesh and blood issue and a paranormal issue. But I figured that out pretty quickly around 2005 timeframe, I guess. And so I've just been chasing after this crazy dirt monkey for quite a while, man, out here in Oregon to Washington now in the Olympic Peninsula. And we've had all sorts of crazy experiences. And Brett's a part of that crazy world. And by the looks of your logo, we can probably go pretty crazy. And
Yep.
So let's take it there.
Awesome. Yeah. No, we're very pro woo here. We're the Ric Flair of of Sasquatch podcasts. That's really cool. I'm kind of marking out a little bit because we talked to a lot of people in a short period of time. We started this show back in September, so we're less than a year old. And I guess for me, it all started with film too. I'm a film geek. I kind of hate the phrase cinephile, but I've dabbled with that one once or twice. My favorite movie of all time is Jaws. So hearing you have that love of Spielberg, that it brings some happiness to my ears there. Usually it's Jaws or Tremors, and I can't really decipher which one I love more. But
it's Jaws. I'm telling you right now, it's Jaws.
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
but I'm curious. I mean, this really doesn't have a whole lot to do with anything other than film. Since you guys are out of that world, what is your favorite Bigfoot movie?
Oh man. You know what's funny is a very close friend of mine starred in Big Legend.
Okay.
And his name is Todd Robinson, and Todd played the older redneck guy that gets his leg mangled. Have you guys seen that movie yet?
I have.
Okay, yeah. So Todd, I was the first person to put Todd on camera back in 1996 for a TV show I was directing, and then Todd got the role in Big Legend. Years and years after that, after becoming a successful actor. I mean, Todd's been in almost all of my movies. So I'm partial to Big Legend. I know both those guys, Kevin Makeley and Todd. And Kevin's actually had his own before.
I don't know. My favorite documentary before 2019 was a little known movie called Sasquatch Odyssey. My favorite doc, right? And so it interviews Peter Byrne and Henry Franzoni and some of the greats. But my favorite Bigfoot movie may not be a Bigfoot movie to most people. I think it is kind of a Bigfoot movie, just going back to the lore of what ogres are and trolls are. But I love Troll Hunter, and I call that my best foreign Bigfoot movie. It has everything I want in a B flick. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a Spielberg type, and I don't know why. Why hasn't Scorsese's a big fan of Bigfoot, by the way. We found that out. I had no idea. There's a lot of closet footers, but why hasn't there been a Spielberg type approach to this subject matter? And I think it's because the giggle factor, right? Because it's a stupid name. And Harry and Henderson's kind of sealed the deal. Although the tropes in that, they're actually some really cool actual tropes in that movie, especially towards the end, that are, real. But just to get to your question, Troll Hunter, if you haven't seen Troll Hunter, I loved it.
Yeah, I enjoyed Troll Hunter a lot. It's been a couple of years since I think I caught it on Netflix right when it first released. So it's been a minute, but yeah. Yes, so thanks for answering that. That's a nice icebreaker.
Well, no problem.
I
really liked Wrong Turn 3 with Henry Rollins.
Is Bigfoot in that one?
We're like, well, Henry Rollins is basically Bigfoot, except for Bigfoot if he was 5'1".
Yeah.
Is Henry Rollins that short?
Yeah, he's a tiny individual.
Is he really?
He's small, he's small boy. Yeah, for
No
sure.
way.
That's why him and Glenn Danzig have such anger.
Yeah, they fight all the time. Whoever's the shortest.
It's so funny. That's so funny. The guy. Okay. Trivia alert. So TJ Ravenwolf, who opens up a Flashy Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot, his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, I guess it was, his ex-girlfriend is Glenn Danzig's girlfriend. He used to run with a lot of those guys. Yeah. So he said next time we're down in San Diego, we need to look up Glenn and hang out with him, which I don't know that I'm going to do.
Probably best not to.
Yeah.
I love Danzig.
Mother.
You guys can shit talk him if you want. I'll hide my Misfits tattoo here.
Yeah, please cover that.
Nice. But yeah, the Danzig's awesome.
Nice.
So I was kind of taken aback when everything kind of fell in place for this show tonight, because we just talked to Todd Neese, and he had said that up until you were at I think it's Beachfoot, in an event, he said to bring it up and ask you if it's true or not that you weren't actually super into Bigfoot until you happened upon the Beachfoot event. And I wanted to maybe just start with that and see if that was accurate, and maybe get some information about that. Like if you weren't into it, how did you end up at Beachfoot?
So that's totally false. We ended up at Beachfoot. So both Jill and I are married, and we had written a sci-fi film called Entanglement, and it's a movie we'd still to this day love to make. But this is back in 2013, I believe it was 2012, 2013, and we had some investors that we were working with. These investors happened to be friends with Todd. I don't know how they were friends with Todd, but they were two older guys. It was a father and a son, and they said, "Hey, we go to this thing, the last couple of years called Beachfoot. We're friends with Todd. If you guys want to go, let us know." And they were telling us it was an invite only thing, and we before they could finish talking, we said yes, absolutely, 100%. And that wasn't even as filmmakers; that was just as bystanders, because both Jill and I. We were never obsessed with Bigfoot, but we had a very, very strong interest in Bigfoot and the paranormal, just being the fact that we grew up in Oregon. And Jill grew up on the Oregon coast. And so her backyard essentially was a Bigfoot playground. And she still swears to this day that she heard weird noises and had strange things happen back there. So we didn't know, apparently we didn't know the first thing about Bigfoot until we went to Beachfoot. And, by that time, I knew who Todd was because I'd seen him on Unsolved Mysteries. I knew who Peter Byrne was because I'd seen him on In Search Of. So anything Bigfoot related, I went out, I searched out. So I knew who a lot of these guys were. And I'd been listening to Coast AM, on a very regular basis, every night, basically, because I was delivering newspapers. I was delivering the New York Times in college in the middle of the night to pay for school. And Coast to Coast AM, I'd listen to the entire show and the first 2 hours repeat. You know what I mean? And so I knew about Ron Moorhead. I knew about all these guys. And all of a sudden we show up at Beachfoot and there they all are. And we're just like, God, it was like all of a sudden, for filmmakers, like being at the Academy Awards, and all you're surrounded by stars. So Todd is mistaken. We were enamored, but like I said, we didn't know anything about it. We didn't know, Ron Moorhead was the first person to tell us about the woo and about disappearing footprints in the snow. And then Rhonda, his daughter, was telling us about shape-shifting. And our minds were just completely blown after that weekend. And I remember leaving, and Jill and I were going, man, there's wouldn't it be amazing to do a film, to do a documentary? And it was actually a couple of years later that those same investors and Jill and I were talking about, I won't name names, but a friend of ours had just won grand jury prize at Sundance for a big movie. And we actually met with him. This would have been in 2015, maybe. We actually went and had drinks with him. We said, hey, why don't we take a serious look at the Bigfoot subject matter? You've got clout now. You've had films on HBO. This stuff is real. These people are really seeing this stuff. It's really, really happening. They're shaken by it. And he declined, and we weren't surprised that he declined. And so, we got back into making regular scripted movies and stuff, but it was always in the back of our mind. And every single year we were reinvited to Beachfoot. Sometimes we'd attend, sometimes we didn't. We always paid for it, but it just always happened at a really busy time of the year for us, the end of June. But we've just kept in touch. And finally, when the pandemic hit, we're like, man, we're out of work. We got nothing going on. Let's do the Bigfoot doc. And Beachfoot was thrown together at the very last minute because of the pandemic. There was all kinds of regulations set up. So not very many people showed up, but some big people showed up. Like Amy Boo came all the way from Ohio. Daryl Adams ended up showing up, and that basically opened the floodgates because we interviewed Daryl. We had seen the alien Bigfoot connection with Tobe and Daryl. They're at the very end of the film. And we knew we had to talk to these guys immediately. So from that point forward is where it all started and where it began. It's all thanks to Beachfoot.
Yeah, that's interesting. Super cool. I want to say that I watched A Flash of Beauty. I watched it very soon after starting this show, and I liked it a lot. Like short of saying that I absolutely loved it, because I don't want to seem like what we call a parapossum on this show, where I'm just like a fangirl and saying everything that you want to hear. But the DNA of our show is, I would say we share that DNA with your film, because outside of talking with Todd, we've also talked with Arla, and we're kind of bringing all of those people that I discovered from your documentary onto this program as time goes on. So it definitely resonated with me, and so I don't know if you care to hear that or not, but
of course, absolutely.
Thought it was awesome. And
thank you. We wanted to do something that really inspired a change in the community, and what was really cool is that Jill and I had all those years of research. Really, we kind of got to know the community to a certain extent, being that we were able to start from the top down, and we looked at a lot of the stuff that was out there, and we were like, there needs to be some sort of a shakeup. And people outside of the Bigfoot community need to start taking this seriously, because it's happening. They're not just a pop icon or something you see on lunch boxes and bumper stickers. There's something actually happening here, and it's the biggest story in human history next to Jesus Christ and UFOs. You know what I mean? It's like we have a cousin that lives in the forest, and we've always had a cousin in the forest. So let's get it out there. Let's treat it seriously. Let's treat the people, the witnesses, seriously, and do it with some respect, so people will talk about it. And we feel like so far so good, but we're not stopping. We're just getting started.
Yeah, you absolutely achieved that goal. That's one thing that I really liked about it, was how segmented it felt, where each person kind of brought their own background and history and experience, and it didn't necessarily have to blend, narratively speaking, with everybody else. And it was just kind of like this really interesting potluck of Bigfoot experiences. So yeah, it was good. Like we appreciated it. And so how did you go from you're at Beachfoot, you're interviewing these people, you're trying to throw this together. How do you eventually, what's the process of getting this film from pre-production to I just watched it on Tubi? All the intricacies of this Bigfoot doc, and how you got it out there.
That's a great question. Typical documentaries have a lot more planning behind them, and we put planning behind it, but at the same time, throughout the years of storytelling, we knew good stories, we knew the definition of good characters, and so we just kind of followed the scent, if you will. We knew what we wanted to say, and we wanted to say that the emotional component was something that was missing throughout anything that we had watched. The fact that it's the Roy Neary situation, like what Tobe brought up, is that you have Roy Neary who sees these UFOs, and his life is completely changed. He gets fired, and he could give a rat's ass, right? All he cares about are those UFOs and finding out the truth. So much so that he doesn't even really care that his family's gone. He does, but he doesn't, right? And we see this in the Bigfoot community across North America. Todd Neese is a great example of somebody that he hasn't thrown things away by any stretch, but Todd had 35 seconds of sightings, and it's completely and totally altered his life and changed his life and many people around him. And Todd is one of thousands. And so we wanted to focus on that a little bit more. I mean, it's the first Bigfoot documentary I'm aware of where we interview a hypnotherapist and a psychiatrist. Somebody who, and these are people that are very, very qualified to talk about how the brain works and how the brain processes these types of experiences, and the fact that they have a post-traumatic stress disorder component. So that was something that we knew we had to get, and so we started off with that, and then things happened. Like we met Daryl Wilson. Daryl Wilson wasn't somebody we had heard about. Daryl Wilson was somebody that I went and heard talk at Phenomenon, and I'm like in the back of the room with my jaw on the floor, listening to this guy talk about. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. Listening to him talk about this trip to Alaska and how he had cancer and how he saw Bigfoot, and he's animated at the and everybody in the room is captivated, and Daryl just happens to live around the block from where Phenomenon is taking place, and this guy is the salt of the earth. I mean, Daryl is a wonderful human being. He's the real McCoy. He's actually the person that you see on camera. That's his garden in the background that he grows all of his organic food. And when I heard that story, I was like, we have the ending to our film. I mean, like, again, chills. And throughout that entire process, it just came together almost, dare I say, magically, or we were guided through that. So, there's that. And then we met with a distributor, and that's a whole nother kind of, it's a great story at the beginning, and it becomes a very icky story as I go on because of some stuff that all of us paranormal filmmakers went through that were on that label, including James Fox and Small Town Monsters and Dr. Stephen Greer. We were all with that same distribution company, and they didn't pay any of us. And so there's that. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, we can avoid the murky waters there. It's
the business. Hollywood is ruthless.
Yeah, it's something that I've always thought about. I remember I was going to go to the John Russo Film Academy in Pittsburgh, mm-hmm. and I had talked to him, and I was like getting ready to go, just fresh out of high school. And then one day I'm helping a relative move a couch, and my phone starts like going off. So I answer my phone, and John Russo.
And here we are, all these years later.
It was like it was this surreal moment for me where I was like, I can't, like, this is insane to me that the director of The Return of the Living Dead just called me, just wow. not for any reason, just to talk. And like I was young and stupid, and I didn't follow through with pretty much anything until September when I started this show. All these years later,
30 years later, it took him 30 years to follow through with something.
But
hey, wait, Colonel Sanders became Colonel Sanders in his 80s or something. So it's never too late, man.
Yeah, but he didn't string along his friends and try to screw their asses out, right?
That's inaccurate. We can't say for certain what we did. We don't know that.
We don't for certain know
that. But so we've dabbled in film ourselves a little bit on the very, very lowest of lows. I don't want to sound like I'm your contemporary or anything, but it's something that we hope to grow our show with. In January, we filmed a documentary about the Melonheads.
Oh, it was great.
Two of us with our iPhones, and a couple of
as stupid as it sounds. That was quite possibly the most fun I've had in the last 5 years of my adult life.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of it. And so this is kind of silly, but I also have applied to have our show on Shark Tank, and we are in the second phase of consideration. So we're just trying to
don't know what we're gonna do with that.
No, I just want to get made fun of and wear my t-shirt on TV.
Nice.
But I'm rambling a little bit, but I have that love of film and the industry, and that's just part of it that I've not really ever had to experience, dealing with distributors or anything like that. Does that become more difficult when you're trying to sell Bigfoot, or are there companies or people that are more willing and open to throw a Sasquatch related project out?
Well, there was, and that was 1091. They were willing to stick their necks out and put out good paranormal films, and they were doing very well with paranormal films. And what led to their demise is they were purchased by Chicken Soup for the Soul Productions. And I'll never forget getting that email saying that 1091 was purchased by Chicken Soup for the Soul Productions. And Jill and I kind of looked at us going, this can't be good. And it wasn't. And Chicken Soup for the Soul Productions acquired Redbox and blew their wad. Redbox did a massive amount of business during the pandemic. For whatever reason, I don't know why, because you would think that people would just stay home and stream, right? And watch Netflix and stuff. But for whatever reason, they did massive amount of business.
I'm renting them 50-cent DVDs, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where they went wrong, and they stopped paying folks. What it sounds like, I'm not trying to get conspiracy theory-esque here, but it sounds like
show.
They chose to not pay the paranormal filmmakers. Sounds like other filmmakers were getting paid. So I don't know what that's all about.
Beat.
Yeah. So the process, though, we have had distribution with other companies, and the process can be difficult. And Hollywood is very cutthroat, and we've never seen a dime from any of the other films that we've made, unfortunately. I shouldn't say a dime. It's been very, very small amounts. One film, I think we're negative, quite a bit of money on. So that we definitely didn't see a dime on that one. But it's very hard business, very trendy, and people are not to be trusted. I would trust Sasquatch any day of the week over a lot of people in the film distribution business. And with that being said, there's a lot of really great people that believe in your project, and the folks at 1091 were those people, but their hands were tied. They couldn't do anything because of their parent company. So I do want to give a shout out to the lovely people at 1091, because they had our backs. They were cool, and I don't want to begrudge them. Let me put it that way.
That's fair enough.
Maybe I'll begrudge him here. Just for now.
Tobe can begrudge. Yeah, absolutely.
Tobe's been checking his heart rate for the last 20 minutes.
No, he's been checking his Merlot level. So
yeah, I need to stop talking, you guys.
Yeah, I don't mean to ignore him at all. To definitely interrupt, say fatty shut
well
up,
no, but B-Dog
stuff.
was on the business side of things. I'm not
B-Dog.
This is not my background. I did have a production design background at the University of Oregon, a theater background and a audio engineer hopes and desires, but I didn't really know how to do anything with it in little town of Eugene, Oregon, and I wasn't willing to move, so I became a truck driver. And so I didn't have anything going on.
Wait, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Truck driver.
Yeah, I remember Jack Dalton from Big Trouble in Little China.
I know how people drive trucks.
That was me, right?
But I mean, so were you like the long haul, or were you like short haul?
The ladies called me the long haul. No, I was the long hauler. Yeah. No, I did short hauls and I did long hauls. I went from Eugene, Oregon to Moses Portland. Lake. I went all over Washington, but it was always listening to podcasts about Sasquatch. That was the jam. There was when all this started on my end in 2005 timeframe, there was only a little thing called talk shoe radio. And it was just a little bit of it was totally coast to coast before that. And I never told you this, B-Dog, Brett, that I too was delivering the Register Guard in Eugene, Oregon at Dark 30, listening to said radio channel. But even before that, I remember specifically missing out on a costume party because I was listening to Mel's Hole saga on Coast to
Classic.
Coast with my
Yep.
girlfriend from the video land that I worked at. And we just didn't get out of the old Cadillac that night. We listened to crazy radio stories.
Was she
I could
fake blonde?
What's that?
Was she a fake blonde?
My gal?
Yeah.
No. Wow, this is getting weird. Awful quick. No, she
What
wasn't.
happens when I let him talk? I don't do it very often.
What was her name? Her name was Tawny, and I actually went to kindergarten with her. I know. Nothing good became of it. I think she wanted it more than I did as far as like the relationship. It never happened. But we did have this. I should have maybe taken her under my wing periodically because she was a fan of Coast to Coast. And so
do you still have her number?
Yeah.
Right.
You can put that in the chat, man. I'm just
Tawny, the
saying.
restraining order, put it in now. Tawny wears Depends, so I don't know if
Same.
you're ready for her.
Hey.
It's that kind of show tonight. All right. So
Late night.
right after the week I've had, we've both had the stomach virus. I have a puppy waiting outside the studio here for me to go take it for a leak afterwards. So we're having good times. I get it. But let's play fast and loose.
No, I'm kidding.
Go for it. Shoot.
But so, listening to Art Bell was really where this all started for me. And it was really my only background. Brett and I just talked a couple weeks ago, and I reminded him that not that he needed a reminder, but I have no cinema background. Like, I know people. Like, that's my deal, right? Like, I know locations, I know people. And generally I get along good with most people. But I also know people that can be a problem. I know people that can be interesting. People talk to me. Most people talk to me. And so that's what my specialty was, is I was kind of like the guy that went and found people. And I happened to be one of these people along with this dude named Daryl Adams. He talked about him at Beachfoot. And so, if you saw part 1, then you need to see part 2, because obviously Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed tells a personal narrative story. So does part 2, but it tells about these hidden events that are structured around fringe science, let's say, right? Like, we get into the paranormal big time. There's no avoiding the paranormal with Bigfoot. So anybody that tells you that this is only a relic hominid or a dirt monkey, they're telling you that, A, because they believe it and that's their experience, or they're telling you that because they're scared of what happened in and around the issue and the ideas that are flirting, as far as there being cross-contamination with things like orbs and UFOs and, missing time and stuff like that, ESP, Mindspeak, Ghost, all that stuff. Or they're part of the problem. They're gatekeepers, and they know damn well that something is connected to this issue that is secret. And so they lie. They're professional liars. They step on stage and they lie in front of an audience for a living. They get paid okay. They sell books mainly. That's their gig, right? Like, they get up and they want to sell their book, and maybe get a show. But they lie by obfuscating and redacting. So they don't mention what has happened to them, but they snipe. They snipe at the people that have experiences like in part 2. And now it's our turn. They've had 60 years to play these little games, right? They've infiltrated production studios. The CIA's already, made mention of that before Congress. And so however high this goes, however low they go with it, their day is over. And it's our turn. They've had 60 years. And now we want to play. And the wind is at our back. It's a lot of fun because, everyone's coming to this party. It's the cooler party to have to talk about the real issues at hand. And thank God for the disclosure stuff, even though it may be, disclosure is happening in one degree, but there's also a lot of stuff that they're not disclosing as well, and they're playing a game. But whatever is happening here, they can't avoid, because ultimately the aliens, they're going to tell you what they are regardless. We don't need permission from the DOD or for the government. No. And so is that what Sasquatch is? Are they going to tell us in the same faction? Are we going to have a delivery date? A mass sighting event is going to happen in the sky. Is a mass sighting event going to happen when they come walking out of the tree line? I don't know. I mean, the Native Americans said, hell yeah. They said, if you have a sighting, that means that the apocalypse is near. That's what the Klamath Indians believe. Native Americans all have different stories about these critters, people, whatever. But they all believe they're real. None of them think they're just an animal. I mean, only the really foolish people think that these are just animals. All the smart ones think these are people. And that's me talking, because they seem to be like a type of people, like a really weird, feral person with a sense of humor, a different language, with a culture, with a family unit, with structure. And it's related to UFOs and dead people. Why is that? Well, because they come from between the pages of the book of their life, right? They're not just the pages. They come between these little pages, right? They slip between time. And so they come from these window areas, these portals, like these energetics do, which are UFOs and ghosts. And the Native Americans have been trying to tell us this for years. And before them, it was, the Celtics. And it just goes back in time all the way to the Green Man before that. And so it's a very multi-leveled story. And, it's never been done. There's never been a documentary like this ever on the subject matter. And if there is like an award ceremony or a version of that for documentaries that go outside the norm and aren't careful, this is that documentary that should be celebrated in that sense. And it is, right? Like, because it's got 500,000 views in 14 days on YouTube. People are responding. That doesn't happen unless you have like, The Rock or something in your doc. But we don't got The Rock.
The Rock.
We got our version.
Well, we could have The Rock, right?
Yeah, right. But anyway, I'm passionate about it. Brett's passionate about it. We fill our time up most of the time talking about this stuff. It doesn't always pay the bills. So you better love what you do if you're not going to make a buck, doing this. And there's just not a lot of money in discussing or filming or showing the paranormal. You have to get really lucky with that and be connected. And sometimes you have to grease the wheels and kind of kiss the right asses. And
that's what we're doing right now.
That's what we're doing right now. We're attempting to do that. Right. Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah, it's working.
It's working.
I'm gonna leave studio.
We'll still grease. So he's probably having one of those bathroom issues that he addressed at the beginning of the show.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, you get to see it. And
pretty soon it's just going to be me and you, Andrew.
I did as a joke.
It was a false alarm. But the passion that you spoke, like that, I love that. It struck a chord with me. That's exactly how I feel. We're even further down the chain as just like the podcast area where, we're absolutely not going to see any monetization from this, but it's the drive to know the truth and to understand and to talk to my friend about shit that I like to talk about.
I don't even like talking to Drew though. That's the thing. Like
that's why he doesn't usually talk and I ramble. But
I just interject every once in a while.
It's something that I absolutely relate to, and something that even on our level that we see with gatekeepers and people on the convention scene who really use media as a way to get people to go to their tables and buy their stuff. And it's something that I didn't expect would still exist. I'm a longtime Coast fan too. This show started by my failed attempt at trying to make an Art Bell documentary. And when that didn't actually pan out, I don't know why it would have, but when it didn't pan out. And I was like, well, I guess it's a podcast now. And, here we are all these months later. And, we've kind of picked up that torch. And I will,
man, like we've spent like all this time to like, and we find people like you guys to talk to, and it's the coolest thing in the world. Like, we would never talk to you guys outside of this podcast, right?
Oh, come on,
man. And well, not that we wouldn't, but that we couldn't.
No. I just mean like we wouldn't have found you guys if it wasn't not that like we have this. I just mean like we would not have known about you guys outside of this to come talk to you, and it's the coolest thing in the fucking world.
Yeah, and that's kind of the where I take pride in what we do is that you guys had asked if we were going to do a live show, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But I've actually taken a pretty severe dislike to live YouTube channels lately, specifically because it seems like guests are being used to get super chat donations, and that's just not my bag, man. Like I come from that same line of thought that everybody else, when they were listening to Coast, and you brought up Mel's Hole, and there's a reason why all these years later everybody still talks about Mel's Hole, and whether or not that is like a truthful thing or if that was art kind of playing entertainment games, that's something that for 20 years has been debated, but we haven't stopped talking about it, and people haven't stopped listening, and the passion is there for that stuff. So when I have an opportunity to talk to you guys, it's super cool. It blows my mind, but I do remind myself from time to time that I think what I'm doing with this show, what JC's doing with this show, is something just slightly different because we're putting the subject matter first and we put the guest first. And there's not a single super chat. There's not a penny that is being made off of this conversation. And I just kind of pride myself in that and not being one of those guys who uses the paranormal to sell a book instead of trying to get the truth and put that truth into a book and put it out there for everybody to read and have those discussions. But soapbox rant over and done with. We brought up Paranormal Bigfoot, and so I thought it would be interesting to kind of get your take on that because there's a lot of differences that come with the woo. Do you think that? And you guys, if you want, you could take turns answering or interject or whatever. But this is kind of for both of you. Both of you. Do you think that what we're seeing is related to ufology or interdimensional, or are these, the portal jumping, cloaking? Is it all connected, or are we seeing something and interpreting it differently? The mind speak, infrasound. Where do you guys kind of stand on all this?
I'm going to bounce this right to you, Brett. Throughout the documentary, we bring up the anchor of our show, Dr. Simeon Hein, who basically, in short, says whatever's happening here is in a unified field. That means it's all interacting all at once. It's a circle, not a line. And they have access points to that. And they have a variable state. They're not a constant. So they can basically be a chameleon of all different shapes, sizes, and abilities. That is explained throughout part 2 with incredible stories. There was a moment at Phenomicon where Phenomicon's right outside Skinwalker Ranch. So there's a lot of DOD insiders in this venue. There's like over 1,000 people that show up at this conference. And someone told Brett that we had the science correctly. So, out of all the things I could say about the film, for who I think said this to Brett, is pretty incredible. So I'll give that to Brett.
Yeah, we were actually told that by someone who works for the Department of Energy at a classified lab in Tennessee. And there's some famous labs in Tennessee. And he essentially said, he actually told Dr. Simeon Hein, is that all of the science is correct. This particular gentleman was a plasma physicist, and he couldn't say any more because it was classified, which is kind of sort of amazing, actually. And that's a big time nod to Simeon Hein. This is his research. We just were lucky enough to be able to get him to agree to talk to us in the documentary. And Simeon is an amazing dude. He's a musician. He's kind of like a modern day Renaissance man in a lot of ways. He's just such a cool cat, and we're honored to have been able to have not only put him in our film, but become friends with him and continue to learn through him, because he keeps learning and his theories keep growing. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Andrew, it's all connected. It's all connected. I think it's all connected under the laws of the universe, and those are the laws of quantum physics. If quantum physics has laws, I don't know that it does. You know what I mean? And I don't know, I mean, it's such a strange science that even, many scientists claim to not even really fully understand it. And I just don't think we're at that point in human history right now. I don't think we're at the point in human history or in our society or in our civilization. Just like Michio Kaku talks about, there's different levels of civilizations. And I think we're like at this second one up from like cavemen, which makes a lot of sense because humans are not that old. I mean, we've been around for, in the modern sense, we've been around for like a couple hundred years, maybe. And I'm only just talking about the Industrial Revolution. You go back 40,000 years ago was when we like learned how to like farm. So 60,000 years of that, we were throwing spears and dragging home woolly mammoths. So we're still in our infancy. And I think a lot of this knowledge, I mean, you look at the state of the world today and you're like you go to Walmart basically, and you're like, yeah, no, I get it. These people can't handle the truth. They just can't. They're going to go and they're going to steal all the toilet paper they possibly can because there's aliens that are coming. You know what I mean? But there are those of us who are, because we have this innate sense that, we're attracted to these ideas, these mysteries, which means that we're ready for the truth. We're ready to live in a universe. We're ready to live in a world where we can communicate over massive distances instantly with telepathy, which goes back to the principle of quantum entanglement, where you have two molecules that are on opposite sides of the universe that react instantly to, touch or whatever you want to call it. That's like similar to how telepathy works, or how we can vibrate at different rates in order to make ourselves invisible. And just to simplify that as an analogy, people say, well, how does that work? How does that work? Well, a hummingbird, when it goes up to a feeder, you can't see its wings with the naked eye because it's vibrating so fast, they're invisible. But we know that when a hummingbird is sitting on the end of a branch, you clearly see his wings. Or if you slow down the camera, you can see its wings. Slow down your shutter speed. So these are the things that are happening in our universe right now. Sasquatch go invisible because they're vibrating extremely fast. Or they go into a partial invisibility, which is a cloaking, which is the same kind of thing. And I've heard people talk about how the Sasquatch say that they do it by bending light. So the list goes on and on and on. But again, it's all connected. UFO abductees talk about a lot of the same things that Sasquatch witnesses talk about. Ron Moorhead brings up the quantum Bigfoot that, the things that Jesus was able to do are things that aliens can do. Sasquatch has done. Daryl Wilson was healed by potentially healed by a Sasquatch. I don't know if he was or he wasn't, but he's still alive 10 years after his sighting. So what does that tell you? That's either the power of the brain that medical science is ignoring, or that was the Sasquatch. It's one or the other, because the man is still alive after being given essentially a death sentence. And he uses those words in his interview. So the power of this knowledge is just insane, and people need to start paying attention to it for a variety of reasons. One of which is that, some of this knowledge could be used to repair damage that's been done to our planet. Whether people out there are on board with upcoming climate change or not, it doesn't change the fact that microplastics are in everything. They're finding microplastics in ancient antiquities. Yeah, and that's not stuff that we want to be ingesting and we want our animals ingesting. You know what I mean? It's gross. It's garbage. Yeah. So we need to be able to figure out how to fix this.
New layer of I can't remember. I have a friend who is an archaeologist and super science brain, and he was describing that, of all of the layers that we have of the earth underneath us, that now, because of us, there is a new layer that's strictly made up of microplastics.
Yeah.
And he was kind of using that as a way to describe that it would be difficult to prove like an ancient civilization was able to achieve the same level of industrial achievements that we have, because that would show in the lower parts. But that's the only reason I know that, is because of that conversation. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm curious, do you think that what we're seeing, since it is all connected, and so that means that there is contact being made, do you think that are humans ready for this interaction, or is that the reason why it's still sparse that people experience UFOs, or there are fewer people who have run into a Sasquatch or Bigfoot? Is it strictly because we're not ready for that, or maybe are we on the cusp of being ready because of people like yourselves or other podcasters, or like there seems to be some type of uptick in interest over the last couple of years in this? Are we ready to have that experience?
I think of all the people on the face of the planet that are ready to have the experience, I think they're the only group of people are the natives that are in touch with the earth, because they are the closest human beings to Sasquatch. Mel Skahane talks about this, about how they're he believes that Sasquatch are the purest humans. And, in our interactions with Native Americans throughout making both of these documentaries, that's been the consensus. They're ready. They know there's prophecy. I think that there are certain people outside of the natives that are ready, that are willing to go through this transition, this new way of thinking. And I think it becomes less about technology, more about spirituality. And then in turn, that spirituality can lead to a type of technology, if you will, or a type of convenience, such as telepathy or biolocation or things like that. I've been blessed to have traveled the world, and I can tell you right now that America is really kind of sort of greedy, and the priorities are backwards. I feel like, if anything, parts of Europe might be more ready than Americans, because it's like, people they hoard stuff. They'd be, if the Sasquatch were to come and change the world, they'd be afraid they might lose their stuff. You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense. Like, I can't lose my iPhone. I can't lose my fancy car. I can't, like we're in this particular country, we're going the opposite direction. We need to be. I don't get that feeling. I get a sense of people that appreciate art, people that appreciate history, people that appreciate culture, in many places overseas. So, I don't necessarily get that impression in places like Asia and stuff like that. those are very technologically driven cultures. I don't know. I'm going to get off that particular soapbox because I'm in no way, shape, or form an expert. But those are just my observations. I feel like you have to be in this mentally in this place, almost like Buddhist monks. You have to be right and centered with the universe.
Yes, and as they taught me in improv class. I wanted to go back to what you were saying earlier, Brett, too, because I thought there was something we never really got into was the Michio Kaku. Is that how you say Kaku?
Michio Kaku, yeah.
Michio. He's really come full circle because he was way down the line as far as believing intelligence was visiting Earth. Now he's of the mind that basically the onus on the DOD is to prove they're not coming here because the evidence is overwhelming. So this is the guy that's been preaching, like Brett has been talking about, type 1 through type 5 civilizations. And I think we're just like maybe approaching type 1 or something like that.
Yeah, we're low.
It's called like the Kardashev scale. And so I'm using Chat GPT often in these podcasts here, which is like amazing. If way quicker than going on Google here, and way more in depth, and it personalizes it to me, which is just a soapbox for me appreciating Chat GPT. But it gets to this scale of type 1 through type 5 civilizations. That's it, Brett. We're type half. We're type 0.04. These things are type 5 civilizations.
Yeah.
Right. And so what is a type 5 civilization? You can harness the power of the effing universe. That's what we've been trying to tell people. They have reached a godlike status as far as ability. And I've said this before, and it's tough for me, right? Like, because I grew up as a Protestant, right? So I've still got that Protestant weird guilt about saying these things are godlike. Well, they are freaking godlike. Like, they have demigod Zeus-like power, right? Like, they can harness the power around them. They can harness the power of the universe. They can't be seen. They can't be tracked. This is what the flesh and blooders have been telling us for years. The reason they can't be seen and they can't be tracked is because they can harness the power of the universe, right? Brett and I say this in unison. The lack of evidence is evidence that something squirrely's going on here, man. Yep. The last 60 years, there's no body. They haven't produced anything other than plaster and degraded hair that is often contaminated. Is it contaminated, though? And we have to go back to the natives. Now, this is where my yes and comes in on this comment. Is it yes, the Native Americans are enlightened? Yes, they've been talking about this for years. I'm going to roll the dice. Something's about to happen globally. A great resetting, a level playing field, in my opinion, is about to take place. That's either going to be from the heavens or from below. Something's going to pop. And we're all going to feel it. We're not going to be doing podcasts. We're not going to be playing Bigfoot. And once that happens again, what's that?
I said, watch us.
Watch us. Yeah. You'll be the only podcast.
We'll be the only one.
Talking about Dookie and talking about, right? You'll be the Dookie squatchers. So in my opinion, and this is maybe where people differ, is that there's going to be a level playing field. And once that level playing field happens and the dust settles, we're all going to know. It's just going to be out in the open that these miracles can happen. And, Brett's trying to tell that through his editing, right? Through the Sistine Chapel, that they're showing Bigfoot hidden in these Renaissance paintings. They're showing, I saw one the other day, right? Like, I can't even remember it because I get so much stuff.
Renaissance paintings?
Yeah, there's a Sasquatch in the Sistine Chapel above where the Pope hangs out. Sorry, I'm not being blasphemous.
Two of them behind an altar.
Vatican?
Yes.
Vatican, painted by, I'm assuming, Michelangelo. But there's two of them. They're obviously not gorillas. They're obviously not human beings.
No.
And
they look like your logo. They look like your freaking logo, dude. They're two, and they're crying out in pain, or like they're shunned from society. They're coming out of a cave. Like the Native Americans have always said, they're underground. Like the underground is where the spirits hang out. That's where the hairy man hang out. And here's the Sistine Chapel in unison with the First Nations people, especially out here in the Pacific Northwest.
I want to be careful here because we keep talking about the First Nations and the natives, right? Because those in America, we have those.
Mm-hmm.
But what about Europe?
What's the question?
There are no First Natives or anything like that in Europe.
Oh, sure, no, this is much bigger than that, though. And there you have to appreciate.
But we're focusing on the First Natives here in this country, the United States.
Right, because that's our experience. But you're right. You're totally right. Like if you go back, and I'll get ChatGPT in charge here again.
Thank you.
But on the reliefs of the buildings in Europe, you will see the relief, the pictograph, the carvings of the Green Man. And so the idea of the wild man, the person set apart, the man in the woods, has always been a thing, right? It's just like it's a part of our folklore. That's where trolls and ogres come from. So it's a Nordic thing as well. It's a Sami thing. It just goes back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But those, I mean, the Anglo-Saxons, whatever you want to call them, and so on and so forth, are the natives of that particular region. It's just that they modernized far sooner than the Native Americans, who really have only modernized not by choice, but by the invasion.
Well, it was by choice.
Well, that's arguable because of the invasion. And I just had a long conversation with somebody who talks about how the Sasquatch, he says that the Sasquatch have lived 3 times as long as the typical human, which would mean that some of the Sasquatch that are still alive today, that are the elders, witnessed Wounded Knee, witnessed some of these atrocious massacres of natives on their own land, because a native was accused of stealing a cow from the settlers. Sure. And so the settlers went and killed all the natives, on and on, so on and so forth. And so the Sasquatch were like, whoa, these light-skinned people that we've never seen before are not to be messed with because they go around and they kill our friends. That's his theory. And that's clicking with me for a lot of reasons.
But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that there were native tribes that killed each other to become the most potent natives, and many of them were cannibalistic, right? Like they literally were eating their friends and foes or whoever. So like how are we determining who is the definitive native?
Well, I mean, just as a colloquialism to describe the Pacific Northwest, it's how they preferred to be called, and it's what we call them. I think you can actually call them Indians. Most of them don't mind. We have Indians out here in the Pacific Northwest. We have First Nations people. The natives.
My dad's a First Nation.
Yeah, it goes back as far as you can look. Like we're all attached to some lineage of discovery. We're all kind of the First Nations lineage. If we go back through our anthology, we just are there, right? Like
Stonehenge.
We're probably all slaves too. Like if we looked at, like, if I go back to my Jewish heritage, I'm probably a slave in Egypt at one time. So however far you go back. But the cool thing about Sasquatch is it doesn't care about our names. It doesn't care about our labels. It doesn't care about what we're calling it. They know behavior. These things know intent. They know individuals. That's what the whole deal is that they latch on to people in this documentary and they let them know they're real, or they deal with them as individuals. And so this gets out of our preconceived notions and our ability to kind of project our humanness on them, because they're not human. I think they're a type of people, but I don't think they're human at all. They're something else. And to even call them people is a stretch. They're hairy gods. Like they're hillbilly scientists, according to our buddy
That's
Henry
my dad.
Franzoni. Right? Like exactly. It sounds like a good punk band. The hillbilly scientists are going to be.
It does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they also have this collective consciousness where they all share the same information through their minds, through their spiritualities. This is some of this information has just been coming to me over the last couple of weeks with some of the folks that we've just recently interviewed. Is that they have a language, they have a culture, they have these family units, they have clans. But what's also important too, and one of the goals that we set out to accomplish with the Flash of Beauty was to say that these are not all monsters. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, there are monsters. There are evil Sasquatch. There are cannibalistic Sasquatch. They're missing 411 by David Pilates. Many of those missing people could be victims of Sasquatch. I don't want to sugarcoat it because, and Tobe and I have gotten some information that we're not allowed to discuss that,
from the Sasquatch.
I'm drinking wine. We're talking about it all tonight, man. We're getting into it.
Tobe.
I'll just put it this way.
I'm going to remove Brett.
You go ahead, Tobe. He was gonna talk.
I was just joking.
I'm gonna talk. There are people out there that are doing business that they're not happy. They're having second thoughts about. In regards to the Sasquatch control, just think animal control. I'm going to leave it at that. And we do get into that. That's no secret. We get into that in our first film, but it goes levels much deeper. And some of the things that those people have found out about Sasquatch are bone chilling. But then we have folks like Arla, who have had lifelong relationships with him. There's another woman that we spoke with last week that we're going to meet with at Sasquatch Fest in Nebraska. Same type of thing as Arla. She was telling us all of this stuff. I mean, she's in her 60s. She's had relations with Sasquatch going back to when she was 4 years old. And she's like, she said, the way that she put it, she said, they only know how to pure love or pure hate. Whereas humans can kind of be like, I don't know, the day of the week. I don't know how I'm feeling today, whatever. But she's like, I've never felt a greater love than I have from a Sasquatch. But I know that there are the exact opposite, the antithesis of those Sasquatch that are primarily loners. If you wander into their area, they're gonna scare the living hell out of you. So you leave. And if you don't, maybe you go missing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever talked to Thomas Seward?
Lots of times, yeah.
Okay, yeah. When he was on with us, he had talked about what he called the rogue Sasquatch that were essentially what you're describing, and I know that he's also Pacific Northwest. So
he's also very woo-woo.
I'm not surprised you guys have crossed paths. I like him a lot, and he says a lot of what you just said about the missing 411 and what I always thought was interesting with what he said was how they kind of use Sasquatch as a way to get your kids to behave, and like it was it's going to eat you if you don't do what you're told. Yeah. So there is that kind of underlying fear that's always kind of existed with Sasquatch as well. At least in
I'm very glad that my parents never threatened me with Sasquatch.
I know,
right?
I mean, like, I kind of wish they would have
threatened me with Sasquatch. We'd go fishing in Oregon near Mount Hood, and he'd be like, we'll leave you here with the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot can get
I mean, he couldn't come up with anything worse at Mount Hood.
Mountain lions.
You're gonna be stuck with the government if you stick around.
I mean, nowadays it would be like, I'm gonna leave you with the meth heads.
Rough.
There's a lot of weird creatures up at Mount Hood. I think Sasquatch are the least of your worries.
Well, real quick before I let you guys go, because we usually go about an hour and we already hit that. It always when you have a conversation like this and you get cool people, it just comes out of nowhere that we hit that mark already. I want to give you guys the floor to promote anything and get links out, and anything that you're working on or future projects. Go ahead, and the floor is yours for that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go first and hand it off last to Brett. We have some functions coming up. We have a premiere in Selkirk, Washington, on the Canadian border coming up here on the 5th and 6th. I'm looking up at my calendar.
Medellin Falls.
Medellin Falls.
Near the Selkirk Mountains. Yeah, just so people don't end up in the wrong place.
Okay. And I think there's a festival happening out that way. And just showing the film as often as we can. There is going to be a Flash of Beauty after party up here in Washington sometime at the end of September timeframe. It may turn into something bigger than just a Flash of Beauty after party too. So stay tuned on the Flash of Beauty YouTube channel, where we do these kind of weekly lives. Jill Rimmensnyder, Brett's wife, and I, with Brett as the moderator, hit up the YouTube channel and talk about the edited footage that we release on YouTube. There's a lot of videos on this YouTube channel that people can check out. Flash of Beauty, the podcast, or a Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed on YouTube will bring it up. And so I just suggest everybody head to that YouTube channel to check out what's going on.
Yeah. And we are, again, like Tobe said, we're going to continue to expand our YouTube channel. There are many things that just don't fit into the documentaries. Our primary goal is to produce documentaries. We're kind of like the Star Wars universe in a way. We put out this and that and the other thing, but everybody wants to see movies. Well, at least they used to, before they were crappy. We're going to try not make crappy movies. Fingers crossed. We're only human. Speaking of which, our next movie is called Voices in the Wilderness, working title, about Ron Moorhead and the Sierra Sounds. We've already started shooting that. And I can tell you right here and right now that only half of the story has been told. And that half is Ron Moorhead's. So we're going to be telling the entire story, and you guys aren't going to want to miss it. That's been really exciting. So we're gonna try and get that out in 2025 some point. And that's pretty much it. A Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed is currently now for free on YouTube, and a Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot is on Amazon.
Real quick question. I don't know if it's been asked yet, but why the name Flash of Beauty?
So a Flash of Beauty, I got asked this question earlier today, actually. A Flash of Beauty comes from one Stan Avery, plumber extraordinaire, who was in the first film, and he talks about how you see them, and in a flash of beauty, they're gone. And so there was something about that just stuck with us. And I think that it's kind of an analogy for the mysterious, the universe. There's lots of things that we see that are gone in a flash of beauty, and we
absolutely
think about it.
Our lives, basically.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It is. Well, thank you guys for coming on. I mean, we really appreciate it. You got all been awesome. Brett, Tobes. I still don't have your address. I'm gonna keep calling you Tobes.
I like it. T-Dog and B-Dog.
T-Dog, B-Dog, and D-Dog.
Yeah. All the dogs.
I'm gonna ask what the other dog means.
But I'm gonna let him. I'm gonna stop him now. Actually, and again, thank you for joining us. This was wild.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
This is one of those situations where I consider myself lucky that I do this, and people actually are responsive to it. This has been one of my favorite episodes. I do appreciate your time. I want everyone to check this out. I've been talking about this documentary. Our listeners, you guys know it. This is now the third episode that we've had related to this documentary. Like I said, we share DNA with it. So
there you go.
yeah, see the stickers there. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out now and check the new one out for sure. Support these guys because they're looking out for our interests. And I'll stop rambling now and I'll hit the outro video.
Thanks.
Thanks for squatching, Scotch Later.
Yeah, look at